Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we're closing out the work week here with some best bets in the NBA. Going to be rolling through player props in a separate episode as well. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us all season. Looking to close out on a strong note here. Another 2-2 of the best bets last night, I believe. Or did we hit 3-1 last night? No, it was 2-2. So we'll look to get one more win tonight.
3-1 best bets, 2-2 player props.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the update there. There we go. We'll put that up there in player props as well. But let's go ahead and jump right into your first play here for Friday, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, I like this first game on the slate, the Philly Pelicans game for some props, and I think for the over. It's 220.5. Was looking at the Sixers initially, but it's on the move, and honestly, you might want to grab the points with the Pelicans if this closes 6 or 7. I mean, I think the total is exploitable because the Sixers just don't really do this, especially when they play Eastern Conference teams. They don't get to 220 ever, but you look at who's out, Joel, Drummond, and their defensive rating in the last 4 without any rim protection is about 120, despite playing at a really low pace. They've been about this total. It's just both teams have maybe the worst rim protection in the league when you look at the lineups they're going to throw out there tonight. Like Yabu, 124 defensive rating in his last 4 against legitimate NBA teams, excluding the Brooklyn Nets there. He's not going to stop Nola from going to the rim. With Zion back in there now, they can get out in semi-transition. They can just have a parade to the rim. I think DJM is in for a good game. I expect him to play. Herb Jones and Trey Murphy might hurt a little bit on offense, but it'll probably hurt more on defense for them. And, I mean, yeah, Maxey should be going right to the rim here on the other end. The Pelicans posted a 132 defensive rating against the Blazers last time out. They were 11-3 to the over before going under in 3 straight. I mean, against the Wolves, in one of those games, that was a 100 pace, though, in Zion's return. But it's the Wolves. So, like, of course they have good rim protection. The thing, yeah, with the corner 3 stuff, right? Philly absolutely lighting it up on those corner 3s, as Maxey has drawn 2 pretty often. Nola giving it up. The last 4, Philly giving up the highest percentage of above the break 3s. So that should be there for Nola. But really, it just comes down to the idea of, like, if there's no paint protection, if you're getting a parade to the paint with a pretty good pace on both sides, like I just think you can get to 220 one way or another here. And that, Embiid being out should be better for pace and scoring in general. Maybe not for the free throw angle, but like we've seen in years past, like when it's a Maxey team, like they play a lot faster and freer. And maybe we'll get back to that here as Embiid misses yet another one.
Yeah, no qualms with that. Zion in, Herb Jones out, that kind of stuff. Yeah, all the lineups are indicating this is going to be an over, and Philly just needs to come along for the ride. I do think Paul George is going to end up playing in this game. I think he's like closer to probable than he is to questionable at this point. So let me go over to Golden State in Indiana. Great win for the Dubs last night, I guess, against Detroit. But really, I mean, a squeaker at the end of it. Now, I don't think anybody's playing in this one. I'm almost positive Steph's not playing. Like, the team already made clear that he's not playing back-to-backs much this season. So I don't know why they would change that now unless they're like, oh, crap, we're floundering. We need wins. But I don't think they're there yet with that. So if he's out, and then we just look at what they've done without Curry. I don't know if Draymond's going to play. He was questionable before the Detroit game. Wiggins sat the Detroit game. Unclear if that was because they're going to bring him back for this game, but I don't think so. I don't even understand what's going on with Wiggins more than anyone, to be honest. The Golden State stuff is really weird right now. I believe that he's a little bit injured, but yeah, he's been out for reasons that we don't know for a long time. So we'll see about that. But without Curry, 109 points per game as opposed to 112 points per game with him. So I do lean to an under if Halliburton sits. He and Miles Turner are both questionable. I just don't think the Dubs are going to be able to move the total up. Like, they're not going to contribute to that very much at all. And if Indy doesn't have Halliburton in there, then you'll see that pace continue to go down a bit with Nembhard, a lot more half court offense as the guy running the offense there. The opponent points for sure. Also with Steph 112, without him 104. Now, there's been 7 games that he hasn't played this season, so we should be like pretty clear about that. 2 of those games were against the backups on New Orleans. Then 2 of those were against Houston, who For whatever reason, they've got Houston's number without Steph Curry, which is interesting, except for obviously in the in-season tournament. But yeah, other than that, like it's not like there's that much great sample size here of legit competition to use here for Curry. But I will say, like this team is spiraling, and I don't know if Steph was out there that they have this stuff figured out with Dennis Schroeder. It just looks all bad with him since he's gone there. 12 games that he's played in for the Dubs, 109 offensive rating, 107 points per game. The defensive rating, 115.6 with 113 or 14 points per game allowed. So it's just really weird that he's come in, hasn't really helped the above the break stuff. Their rim defense is as bad as it's ever been and probably the worst in the league at this point. And that's what Indy has actually been doing pretty well, is coming in and going to the rim. They are where they're at right now. They're sixth in paint frequency. So hitting the paint a lot and trying to get to the rim and attacking a lot more than being just a jump shooting team. They're also limiting above the break stuff very well. Fourth in limiting above the break threes in the last 10. The Dubs with Schroeder, unsurprisingly, they are at the second highest above the break three frequency with Schroeder and mostly Steph, obviously. So that makes sense. But yeah, the last thing here is they're 5-7 without Steph. Straight up, they're 3-9 against the spread. I just don't trust them at all, and I do trust the way that Indy's going here. They obviously wiped the floor. I'm forgetting who they smacked last game that we took. Was the Bulls? Yeah, they wiped the floor with the Bulls in their last game. That game was over by the beginning of the fourth quarter. I trust a lot of what they're doing. If Halliburton's not in, if Halliburton's not in, I'll just go with the under 223 and just stick with that most likely. But I do think the 7.5 is fine as long as one of even just Halliburton or Miles Turner would make me feel better about it.
Yeah, no thank you on the under, but I see where you're at with the Pacers. It'd be 4 straight double-digit wins against some pretty good teams, excluding, again, the Nets. But if Halliburton's out, I think your angle is Pascal Siakam, 22.5 points, assists. I think we assume Draymond sits along with Steph. They're kind of tied at the hip right now. So just like, what do the Warriors really have to limit Siakam, who should see elevated minutes and usage? If Halliburton's out, I mean, he got 29 and 29 minutes in terms of these combined props on Wednesday against the Bulls and the Warriors. Earlier this season, 20 points in 34 minutes against them with Draymond out there. So I think that's a look for sure if Halliburton's out. But I think the Pacers have found their mojo on offense, and I wouldn't take a low under with them necessarily. Although, yeah, we'll see what the Warriors actually field out there. I'll take the Thunder -3.5 here in New York. Certainly would like this more if Karl-Anthony Towns sits. I think, it's kind of a niche bet, but the third quarter line, which is about even money, -0.5, is really good for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are fantastic in the third quarter, 9-0-1 against the spread in their last 10, +28 net rating, 100 pace. Just combined for 84 points in Cleveland in the third quarter. So it's possible that we just get a game over in that third quarter. But especially coming off a loss, even if they come out a little slow here, I expect them to just kind of take over in the third, which is what they've done consistently here on this streak since the NBA Cup. It's what they did against the Knicks at home last time out, right? I mean, for the second straight game, I believe, when they were home last week, they were losing control a little bit in the first half and just completely flipped the game with their defense, with their offense in the third quarter. I mean, even if Cat plays in this one, I think Hartenstein is probably in for a pretty nice game against the former team. I don't think the Knicks have enough rim protection to stop what OKC does well, which is go to the basket with Shai and J-Dub. And, teams that can really pack the paint like the Cavs and dare OKC to hit threes, or the Bucks, we've seen that's a recipe for beating them. But otherwise, nobody can stop this team. I mean, they're 5-1 straight up after a loss. They do bounce back, just like the Celtics, elite teams bouncing back. +10 points per game after those losses. This is a small spread. It's up a little bit, but I don't think it's up enough for me to not want to take the Thunder.
Yeah, that's fine. Cat didn't look good last game. I do think he plays, but I don't know that he's close to 100% at this point to be himself. So I think that's too big for the Knicks on offense. They need to have that inside out to be able to score on this Thunder team. So yeah, I think Cat, if he was out there, if he is out there, like if he was full strength, I'd probably be looking at maybe some rebound assists or something like that for him, because I do think he'll have an impact that way. But yeah, they're not going to have much without 100% cat, and not just cat, but 100% cat. I don't know that this Knicks team can hang with the Thunder. Something to consider for the end of the season there to Wide World Waz or West and all the guys and the GMs there for the Knicks. But let's get to my same game parlay because I don't like the rest of the slate, Nate. I don't think you love it very much either, but like it's kind of nasty in other areas. I don't really feel like messing with Bulls, Wizards, or Nuggets, Nets. Let's put it that way. And I want to see what happens with Paolo Banchero coming back here for the Magic before I bet on anything to do with them. Plus, I have no desire to bet on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I've got an SGP here for you from the Kings and Celtics game, which I think we both think is probably a little bit high, even at home for the Celtics, it's 10.5, but I still like a couple of these guys on the C. So I'm taking an SGP with Tatum 10 plus boards, Zinger 20 plus points. And that's a little bit higher than their core prop. So I'm going for the money here. It's plus 340 when you combine those two together. Happy to take both of them as singles for like plus 115 if you want. I just wanted to get both of them out there here in this game because I've been talking about Jason Tatum rebounds for a while. So let me start there. It's interesting because with Porzingis, he gets more rebounds, right? Which we've talked about seems counterintuitive. The thing is, it's not just with Zinger. It's actually even more so when it's Zinger and the rest of his starting lineup. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday. When you have all four of those guys alongside Tatum, he's straight up free. Like he's Ed Reed out there, man, on defense. He gets to just play free safety, just be so free and use his 6'10" athleticism and long arms to be a really insanely good defender that does not get talked about enough. But it also puts him in position for rebounds a ton. And that's what he's focused on when he's not focused on either guarding the best player on the other team or guarding someone who's maybe like a 6 foot, like a Pascal Siakam type, right? That's someone it plays in and out. And you've got to just follow him all around the floor because he's so good and you're such a vital defender. But now we're talking about him going up maybe some Keegan Murray, who's standing in the corner playing, waiting for the three ball. Anytime that we get these guys like a Tatum or a Luka standing in the corner to get to guard the 3-point shot out there and below the break stuff, now they're in a great position to rebound, and that's their secondary role after guarding their zone of the court is get into the paint and get that rebound. You've also got Domas and Porzingis just going at it, so that's going to be two giant Eastern European guys who are just battling each other and don't have the luxury of worrying about other stuff other than boxing each other out, or for Zinger guarding Domas and making sure that he doesn't get his, right? Especially if there is no D-Fox, who I think is going to play, but either way, Domas is going to be a big part of this game. So if you look at his numbers with the starting lineup around him that he's going to have tonight, which is their desired starting lineup with Zinger in there instead of Horford, then we're talking about 15 rebounds per 36 minutes when he's on the floor with that lineup. And specifically with that lineup, don't take anybody out of it, because once you do, now Tatum has to make up for other areas of the lack of defense of Derek White not being out there, or Drew Holiday or Jaylen Brown, obviously, and they're all out there. So I think he's good for the 10 boards, and we're getting a lot more value because they're not pricing it that way because he's gone under in 3 of the last 4, but 3 of the last 4 have had strong reasons for that, including missing guys, one of those missing Zinger. When we go over to Zingis here, we're talking about him at 20 plus points, and his line still, I believe, 17.5. I like that number by itself as well. But yes, for KP, when he's been out there, he's getting fed, man. Drew takes just a backseat to everybody. He's in the corner. He's just making other things happen on offense. Zingis is tied for Tatum with Tatum for the team lead in field goal attempts when that starting lineup is playing together. And he's taking about 16.5 shots per 36 minutes, looking probably at about at least 30 in this one, unless it's a blowout, which neither of us are necessarily inclined to pick a blowout for the Celtics. But I do think he's good for the 30, 32 minutes. You've got to have somebody out there to guard Sabonis. Not that Horford or Cornette and all those guys, not that they can't do it, but I think Sack's going to keep this game close enough that you can't just sit Porzingis and not expect him to be out there taking shots. So he's going to be taking advantage of where this Sacramento team is weakest, which is right in the extended paint. He's going to be hitting that little mid-range shot, which he's just been crushing, and probably a couple three-pointers in there as well. So I like the look for him on this one. I think he's going to be good for the 20 plus. You take 10 for the 10 plus. If you guys want to mess with that and dumb it down, neuter it a little bit so it's not as big of a risk and you get a little bit worse odds, I'm fine with it. But I was happy to take 3-1 and get a sprinkle on this SGP.
Yeah, plus 340 to be sure. This is requiring a close game, so I think you might as well split a unit and take the Kings plus 10.5, which is a lean for me. I mean, I'd love to see Fox play in this particular matchup. We've talked about how it's kind of clunky, but I mean, it shows he would be pretty essential here for Sacramento to stay in it, as just the experience he brings. I just worry a little bit about Doug Christie, kind of first big test as a head coach here, going to Boston. They could get buried with an avalanche of threes, but I mean, Kings are on 3 days rest here, which is why I would trust them a little bit more. And the Celtics have just not really blown teams out at home this year. So if it's competitive, yeah, I think these guys have a chance to get these props, but I personally probably, yeah, turn it down a little bit here and take something that's more plus 150 to 200 for a little less risk.
Yeah. Any way you want to play it, that's all the time we have for you guys in Best Bets. Definitely make sure to subscribe to that page. Check out player props as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.